Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? I know we're really close to the beer segment at the end of the day, so I'll try to keep you entertained for the next 20 or 25 minutes. As mentioned, I'm a little more on the business side. This is kind of a new endeavor for me. I've really enjoyed actually getting involved with the program and kind of diving into a deeper level. But if you get into some super technical questions, I might have you meet me afterwards and we can figure out the answers for you. But today we're going to talk about essentially what 2600 Hertz is, our platform called KAZOO, what it does, how Kamailio is engaged with this, and kind of where we're headed in the future. Before we get started, who has actually heard of 2600 Hertz before? Ooh, that's so exciting. Yay. Has anybody used the KAZOO platform, or does anybody currently? Not as many, but that's great, fantastic. Well, before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I do come from the tech industry, but more so on the business side. Oracle, social platforms, marketing automation technologies. So I'm kind of new into the telecom space. And I will say, coming in through 2600 Hertz and learning about the technology that they've been working on over the past 9 years, I think 2009 is when we started, has actually kind of sparked an interest in understanding and diving in deeper to how the technologies within this industry work. It's such kind of an archaic type industry with a lot of fragmented pieces, but we're in the midst of a lot of change. So essentially take it easy on me. This is all very new, but like I said, I'm really excited to learn about all these opportunities. And it's even a bigger opportunity to be part of the global market because we are kind of centric to the United States. So yeah. Today, we're going to kind of go into a brief intro of who we are, a little bit about the KAZOO platform, kind of what inspired the vision of it, kind of how it's moved along, how Kamailio fits into the mix, kind of where we're fitting in the industry as the future moves forward, and then I'll throw up a few resources for those of you that want to dive into the technical a little bit more. So let's talk about kind of how we got started. I'm going to do this in like a 30-second intro, so it's not the most detailed, but work with me. So these three gentlemen up on the screen here, Darren Schreiber, Patrick Sullivan, and Carl Anderson. Darren Schreiber has actually been in telecom since probably before he could walk. He's done everything from managed services to data center management to writing code for FreeSwitch. Funny story, actually. He was practicing telecom research at about 9 years old, tapping into the FBA phone lines. So to say his passion is deep-rooted in this industry is kind of an understatement. But essentially, he had such a desire to dive deeper into communications and really recognized that it was such a complex area. So he kind of had this vision. He wanted to simplify. He wanted to make a technology available so people could actually get involved and build their own and not have to spend a lot of money. So he approached Patrick Sullivan. So Patrick is maybe not as experienced in the telecom world, but definitely has a strong background in business and also computer science. But was really looking for something new, an innovative way to dive into a groundbreaking opportunity that could really change things around. So they started a discussion. They were saying, hey, we want to make this free. We don't really want to make profit. We want something that's collaborative. People can help one another and actually help one another succeed through their technology. They started off, they kicked off the platform and opened it to the open source community. We're doing pretty well. And this gentleman started pestering them, saying, listen, what you're doing is great. I can make it better. Well, you don't tell Darren that you can do something better, so he threw it off a little bit. Carl kept being persistent, and he kept going, and he kept going. So finally, Darren said, all right, we'll give you a shot. Let's see what you got. What Carl was able to contribute were some very key pieces to actually putting KAZOO in a place that was unlike anything at all possible. So they realized, great, we kind of have some key resources. How do we really make this happen, right? We have some people that are using the software, really good about listening to how people feel and act and use and integrate. But what more can we do? They realized it's complex. They realized it's fragmented. There wasn't really a super reliable solution out there. Just a lot of pieces that individuals will hodgepodge, or they're kind of building their own. So they started to try to understand more about how they could enhance what they had currently presented. So they realized we have a good understanding of open source, and it kind of spans across the board. So it can go any which way. But what they didn't understand and what they didn't realize is there were people that were coming in that were looking for different ways to use the platform, not just to go in from a highly technical level, but more so to capitalize on the benefits at more of like a back-end level. They wanted something that was kind of packaged. Yeah, that was a little unfamiliar to them. They wanted to approach this as more of an open source approach. So they started to actually talk to some of these customers and some of these people to understand, like, okay, how are you even going about getting started? So they started to kind of evaluate the process. Obviously, kind of just getting set up, if you're a really small company, is pretty easy, right? You set up an asterisk box, you get your basic HTTP server, you get a computer, load balancer, a few phones, maybe a customer or two. That's pretty basic. Anybody can do that and get going. I think where the challenges start to come into play where when you start to grow, as in any business, things start to get a little more complex. With business growth, typically automation is soon to follow. You can't continue with your manual processes. And as you're growing and you're building your customer base, customers want more features, right? It's all about their experience. So they ask, you need to deliver. Well, if you realize you need to automate, you need to add more features. So obviously, you're going to have to expand your platform and your technologies. So typically, maybe you throw up a web server, split out a few databases, set up a master read and write, and then maybe some back-end duplicates for read-only instances, just to make sure the data is backed up. You write some PHP, some Perl, expose your CDRs, custom dial plans, set those into the databases. You're kind of up and running. It's a lot to manage, obviously. There's a lot of stuff that you have to pay attention to. At this point, you have a bunch of clients, you have a bunch of homegrown servers, operations manager, you're pulling some staff in. Essentially, you're spending a lot of time to keep this up and running if you're trying to build it the way that you want to build it. However, you can plan and you can grow, but we cannot escape downtime. We've all had this happen, hopefully or hopefully not. When you have an outage, there's really not much you can do. Like I said, you can plan for this, but we always can't be fully prepared. So if you're a small business and you're struggling to just scale and you have something like this, more times than not, you're not prepared. People are pissed. You don't really know what to say. You're struggling to get some type of communications out. They're looking for answers. You don't even have a status page, right? So you're struggling. The typical person is probably fighting all these battles and not quite sure what to do next. What you're probably going to do is just keep on building, right? Setting up more data centers, setting up more load balancers. You're going to redesign your server setups, redesign your database. You've just earned a ton of work, and it just continues to get worse, right? How are you expanding? How are you doing your upgrades, your data backups, your security? At this point, you're getting a little overwhelmed, right? So this is typically the point when people actually start evaluating their options. They start identifying, okay, what can I afford? What's important to my customers? What is the optimal level of functionality? Are you looking for more of a packaged solution, like a broad stuff? Or you want to kind of compartmentalize your system and bringing in a Kamailio and a free switch? There's so many different options and so many different approaches you can take, but they're all very segmented. So as they're kind of walking through the segments of what people are typically looking for, now I'm not going to go over all of the multitude of options, but there are kind of some channels that are pretty consistent. Keep in mind, I'm also gearing this towards the North America market, so there may be some differences here. So a lot of people will probably just try to keep going. They have a solution that is custom to exactly what they want and what they need, right? Maybe it's a little more work, but you don't have to deal with anybody else. That can probably kick you in the butt a little bit later down the road, right? Because everything falls on you. Yes, you have something that's great. And yes, you can train your staff to keep going and keep growing and customizing and making the company that you want. But you can't outsource your support. You can't outsource any work. Everything falls on you, which some people are okay with, right? Most cases, that's a lot of work. So they don't want to work too hard, right? So you can also go for the next option, which would be buying a carrier-grade platform. Just get yourself a switch, right? This is something that's polished, it's refined, it's set, it doesn't take a lot of work. However, if you're a smaller guy and you're really just trying to get up and going, you don't have the capital to invest. This is going to cost you a lot of money. So it may give you that stability, but if you can't afford it, kind of what are your other options that are out there? most cases, this is what we found, were the customers that were coming into us were kind of the middle ground. They didn't know how to use the open source side of things. They wanted something that was a little more packaged and very easy to use, very limited technical experience. So they kind of typically would go this way. So I want to rent the platform. I want something easy to get everybody up and going. I don't want to have to hire staff. You can even get your marketing, your pricing, like everything is kind of packaged perfectly. A telco in a box, if you will, is what people, I think, tend to look for. However, you're running into the challenges of you're not sure if it's going to sell. How are you going to differentiate against competitors? There's typically very little to no customization, so you're kind of stuck with what you get. And if you have a carrier that you like, typically you can't bring those over. So we're looking at these avenues, going, all right, well, they're not awful, they're not great, but you kind of have to fall within these realms. Wouldn't it be great if there was something kind of in the middle that would allow you to pick and choose what type of functionality you have, or how you can use the platform the way you want to? And this is where we realized this was our opportunity to expand KAZOO. We had already set it up in a way where the open source community loves it. You're using the APIs, they're making it what they want. Very interactive. Our community, I think, is about 1,000 people, or just about 1,000. It's a great, great community. But there's more to it. There was more opportunity in front of us. We had a platform that was tested to scale. We've been going for years, so it's obviously been used. Because you had the components of customization, you can actually create your own differentiators, which is really huge. You don't really need a ton of staff. Maybe a few operations, a couple programmers just to kind of keep the base KAZOO going. If you want more of the technical side, we have over 100 APIs and 60 call flow actions. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? You can bundle, you can build, it's everything you're looking for. Now, the pros on this is everything you can see. It's low cost, easy to get set up, gives you full control, customization, gives you support. The con, I don't like to say con, so I say maybe the challenges for some may be, there is a little bit of a maintenance. Because we're constantly listening to the open source community and we're trying to understand what's working, what's not working, what do people want, what do they need, we're always upgrading KAZOO. Now, if you're on top of that and you're making sure all the upgrades and the feature sets are going through, you'll be fine. We have had folks that just kind of stick with a version and stay with it, and they're a little bit limited, but for the most part, just stay on your game. It's a really great option. So they were really excited about this fact that we started in one direction and then ended up going down a road that had multiple. So let's dive into our architecture just a little bit. Again, I'm not super technical. I'll throw a few technical terms, but if you have any deeper questions, let me know. So essentially, our SIP engine is Kamailio, as you all know. This is going to be our call routing to FreeSwitch or KAZOO, kind of the integration with both of these. We primarily use it for load balancing and SBC. There are a few other components we started kind of adding onto it, but this is kind of one of the basics. Oops, those are switched a little bit. And for our media server, we're actually using FreeSwitch. So anything dealing with audio or video, it's transcoding this audio back and forth. So taking care of things like conferencing, call recording, muting, faxing, all of those are kind of in line with that. Now this is kind of our bread and butter. So KAZOO, obviously this is written in Erlang mostly, in JavaScript. This is the brains of the operations. So this is deciding what should be done, when it should be done, instructing back functionality. So a lot of the talking between FreeSwitch and Kamailio and back to KAZOO. Now we also have kind of the back office bits of telco as well, number provisioning, tools to kind of help with porting and white labeling. But then we also have a monster UI component. And that's going to take all the APIs that KAZOO exposes and uses them to build kind of intelligent apps targeted for those that are not super technical at all. So Smart PBX essentially is set up in a way so you can manage your whole office system from one interface. Our messaging bus is AMQP via RabbitMQ. This is like a mailroom in a big office building, right? It's handling all the messages that are coming from the publishers and routing them to the appropriate consumers. The cool thing about this mailroom, if you will, is it has a special ability to let the consumers that are interested in the same messages receive copies of the message being published. In short, it lets us decouple the event producing side from the event consuming side. Now, if you noticed in the very beginning, we were talking about not having a single point of failure in our system. Our database and the way it's set up is kind of a key component for that. So we use Big Couch. Essentially, this is a piece that ensures a truly geo-redundant platform. It's a JSON document store with the ability to create secondary indexes over the data. So every document is actually replicated on the servers, typically 3, and those are our West Coast, Central Coast, and East Coast data centers. Everything is replicated, so if one of these servers actually blows up, heaven forbid, there's always a copy of the document that's maintained. So when the server gets restored, everything is actually back uploaded and you have all the information you started with. We refer to it as a multi-master database, if you will. So any server can actually receive a request for data and satisfy it, even if it doesn't hold the data itself, which is kind of cool. Lots of databases typically have a read-only instance and only one master write instance. So obviously, if the write instance goes down, you can't add or update data. You're just kind of stuck with what you have. So this was kind of our piece that we really focused on and continue to test KAZOO with, kind of preparing for anything possible that could happen. So let's dive in a little bit more on, can you guys still hear me? Okay, where Kamailio comes into play. So obviously we mentioned that it is our load balancer and our SBC for kind of the most part. We have been working though with Kamailio since the very beginning. What's funny is we started the project actually with OpenSIPs, and we were just basically using it for load balancing. We were very honest about kind of where we saw the platform going though. We wanted it to evolve as both the technologies evolved and businesses evolved, and then also the individuals using it. So they recommended, why don't you try Kamailio? It sounds like something that would actually scale more to the levels that you're looking for your actual infrastructure. So we swapped over, and in the beginning, it was just primarily FreeSwitch, Kamailio talking to one another. It was very basic. Now, we were using FreeSwitch for our registration traffic, and on kind of a relatively small level, FreeSwitch would get overwhelmed and crash, and this would affect some of our calls. We didn't want that to happen. So we set up Kamailio to route the registration traffic to a specific server that wasn't involved with any of the call activity. And then that way, if something went down, no call quality was affected. However, when we actually set that up initially, we realized there is a lot of potential with Kamailio. Are there more opportunities, excuse me, to actually integrate it more with the system and bypass some of the FreeSwitch functionality? So we built up the ability for Kamailio to talk to KAZOO directly. When we found that was a steady communication channel, we actually offloaded our registrations completely to Kamailio, taking away some responsibility from FreeSwitch. So it's actually a pretty big deal. So now we have the ability to essentially control Kamailio and increase the amount of work Kamailio does without having to involve FreeSwitch, and we're not having the issues that we were before. Everything's stable, everybody wins. It's a win-win for everyone. So like I mentioned, we talked about the SBC and the load balancing. We are also doing a few other things with it. So we're doing some BLF testing and activities. We're also working with some secure SIP options. And then our WebSockets, we've been diving into a little bit more for in-browser phone options. So we're starting to explore kind of the additional functionality that we can tie in, and realizing anytime we take a step in that direction, we've been pretty successful with it, which is great. So we've talked about KAZOO. We talked about the company and kind of the platform and what we see. We talked about how Kamailio ties into this. What we haven't tied in is why this is exciting. And you'll have to forgive me on the next slide because it is kind of more of a US-based example, but pay attention more for theory. What we're noticing is a lot of companies are recognizing that people don't just want to be shoved in one channel. They don't just want a CPaaS option. They don't just want a UCaaS option. They want the flexibility to do whatever they need based around their business demand. ShoreTel, Avaya, Vonage, like all of these companies are focused on building this out and analyzing how to make this work. They have all these technology and they're saying they're integrating, but it's gonna take some time. It's a pretty hard work, right? So people are looking for that flexibility of, I want class 4 or class 5 and class 5, or I want the CPaaS, the API functionality. They want the ability to do all of this in a seamless fashion. Funny enough, KAZOO is actually ahead of the game on this, and we're already doing stuff like this. So when we started, obviously, we were kind of focused on the CPaaS space, like mentioned. So it is kind of a very developer-centric platform. However, because we unexpectedly acquired folks that recognized the potential but needed something a little more simplistic, we started building out apps for the non-technical folks. So Smart PBX, a lot of our resellers base their businesses around. You have things fax manager, voicemail, call center. I think we do operator console. Total number of apps I think we have right now is, yeah, 30 plus. Like we're continually adding on functionality, and it's presented in a fashion through Monster UI where if you want that functionality, you click an app and it's added. So then that way, if you're not a very, very smart developer, you can actually have the same functionality at your fingertips. So we also realized that the more we work with Kamailio, the more projects we take on, the more we integrate with our system, there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of growth. And so we started identifying some projects that we're actually working on now, and hopefully we'll be targeting to finish in the next probably 3 to 6 months. So currently, all of our SIP trunking goes through FreeSwitch, which is not a bad thing. It's fine, it works, and everything's good. But Kamailio has not let us down. In fact, they continue to impress us and keep us motivated. And so we were really excited to see what more can we do. So we actually decided that, and this was actually through a customer doing this, a very big company, they started using the primary functionality of just Kamailio talking to the carrier. They were completely bypassing any media and spending a lot of money doing so. This was something we didn't even think about, but we're like, maybe that is something that people want. Maybe not only do they want the platform, but they want to be able to pick and choose what they want and when they want it. So we started talking with Kamailio, and they are on board. And like I said, in the next 3 to 6 months, we'll actually be swapping over, and everything will be great. So this is a really big deal for us. And we're kind of at the forefront of an opportunity to really dive into what people need, not just what the business wants or not what they're shifted into, giving you complete control, no matter who you are, no matter what your business, no matter what your intention. Keeping a strong technology is very important, and that's what we believe in too, and that's why we're constantly evolving and pushing to the next level. What we've realized, our platform with Kamailio is incredible. We couldn't do it without them, and so our roadmap will always consist and continue to include them in to continue to focus on this. And this is only the beginning. There's so much more in front of us. So if any of this interested you at all, and you actually want to dive into more of the technical stuff and see a lot of the projects that we are doing with Kamailio specifically, I invite you to check out our GitHub page. This is everything and anything you can possibly think of that KAZOO or any of the components do. If you just want to dive into some conversations and see how people are using the platform or what they're doing, whether it's technical or business focused, our community is a great place. Like I said, our forums have over 1,000 people, and everyone is super helpful and active and really likes to get involved in the conversation. So without any ado, thank you very much.
So, having time for some questions here about KAZOO or the hosted PBX approach. I have one because, yeah, as KAZOO is one of the most used in the cloud PBX, and there were a lot of discussion before here about cloud, no cloud. How you see this as going further? It's more people migrating to this cloud infrastructure using telephony services in the cloud, or and also like a balance from your point of view as a company. Are more companies preferring to run KAZOO on their infrastructure, or prefer to, let's say, use a white label solution managed by you or someone else?
It's a mix of both, and that's kind of been, I think, the intriguing part for the company is what we thought people wanted, and going toward more of the open source and you do your own thing. We're veering more towards a service provider model, still kind of holding strong to our roots, because that's really where I think Darren and Carl and everyone had the passion, but still recognizing that that's where a lot of people need help. I feel like these are the folks that can't build what they want, so they really are relying on the players in the industry to provide them that. As far as with the cloud, I feel like I was just actually talking to my colleague about this. So I came from Oracle, a different side of technology, and I feel like telecom is just a little bit behind. But we're now in that phase where everything is transitioning. People are not thinking about hardware, on-premise stuff. There's too much risk. So putting it into cloud just simplifies business, makes it a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to scale. Granted, I can't speak for everyone. I just go off kind of the feedback that people provide us. But.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.